So this is a tutorial on how to create a very quick scrolling story. You will have to forgive me that this is all Star Wars themed. I just needed something that was straightforward, that had a lot of content available to me, and so that was it. So this is a basic version of what we'll end up creating reasonably quickly using HTML. You'll see that it's got a couple of components here. The first one is this hero image at the top with our title and a bit of a tagline. We have an example here which includes some audio. We have a block of text here. We have an image that is parallax, and that parallax image, which is that it scrolls a bit differently from the rest of the website, includes some text overlay. We've got a 2-column bit here with an image on the left-hand side with some rounded edges and with some text beside it. We have another parallax image, some more text, an image gallery available to us here with some content underneath it, more text, and then another hero ending at the end. You may also note that it's got this tab along the top here that gives us a scrolling story, so it tells us how far through we've actually scrolled, and it will chase you the whole time. So the first and golden rule when you go about creating one of these is to make sure that you've created your content first. It makes no sense for you to go about creating all the bells and whistles around here, particularly if you want all of your content here, if that's the important stuff that your users want to be reading in the first place. So make sure that you've actually written all of this in Word or OneNote or something similar first before you go about trying to make it look pretty. The first thing that we're going to do is we need to create a file that will hold all of this stuff. So I'm going to just come here to File Explorer, and at any empty folder here that you want to be using, I'm just going to go right click on a blank space here. I'm going to go to New. I'm going to come down here to Text Document. Now if you don't have an option available to you there, you can go and create a text document any way that you like. The most obvious would be using Notepad. So I'm going to create a text document here, and I'm going to call this My Story 1. Now, blank document, I can open that, there's not going to be anything in it. This is where we're going to be using some templates here that won't necessarily use a whole lot of code for you. The first thing that we need to do is we need to change this from a text document to a HTML document. And the reason for that is simple. If I were to open this as a text document, it opens here in Notepad. What I can do though is rename this as a HTML file. I do that by going right click, rename. And instead of renaming the text of it, that is the name, I can go to the end of it after the dot and rename this to .html instead of .txt. When I go to hit enter here to change it, it may say, hey, are you sure you really want to change this because you might break the file? We're okay with that, we'll accept the risks. Now when I double click this, instead of it opening in Notepad, it's going to open here as a HTML file. Now it's totally blank at the moment, and that's not really going to be especially useful for us, but at least we know that, hey, it's going to be opening in Chrome. Now to get the first bits of code that we need, I'm going to close my tab here in Chrome, and you need to go to this URL here. So this is github.com/mclearn360/story-stream. And it'll take you to this site here. There's only two parts to this, two really simple HTML files. I'm just going to click on the base here. It's going to take me into this bit. For those of you who are unfamiliar with GitHub, it's just a place where you can go about storing and saving and sharing all of your code with other contributors from all over the world. Now this has got 135 lines of code. A lot of it looks much more complicated than what it is. That's fine, we can ignore most of it. The important bit that we need to know is that we have this part here that says your content goes here. All of this code does do handy and useful things. The beautiful part with using this as a template is that you won't need to know what any of this does. All that we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this whole lot here and just dump all of our content in that section there. Your content goes here. So I'm going to start at the bottom here and drag and select all of this. Make sure that you get all of the content, that is including all of these little pointy bits on either side. I'm now going to go right click, copy. I'm going to come back into here, into my original mystory1.html. Now if I double click on this, it's going to open it in Chrome or whatever your web browser is, which I don't really want to do. I want to actually be able to edit it instead. I can do that by going right click. I'm going to edit with Notepad++. If you don't have Notepad++ here as an option, you can go about opening Notepad++ by hitting Start in the bottom and going and searching for Notepad++. If you don't have it available at all, you can use other text editors, and it's probably worth doing a little bit of research to make sure that you can. Regardless, I'm going to go right-click, Edit with Notepad++, as I said before, and I'm going to right-click, paste all of this content. Now again, this looks much scarier than what it is. It's really just a whole stack of styling. The beautiful thing with putting it into Notepad++ is that it gives me these handy little checkboxes here on either side, so I can minimize some of the stuff that I don't want, just to make it a little bit more readable. So where it says head, I can hit my minus here to collapse that. Where it says style, I can hit the minus there. Where it says script, I can hit the minus there. The only part that I really need to be editing is this part here in the body. So we can ignore all of the previous stuff that is there. Now back here in GitHub, I can go back to my story stream. So just by clicking on this bit here, back to view these original two files that I had available. Now previously I was using my base. Now I'm going to come here into component library. And this is made up of a whole stack of different templates. Each one of the templates is separated with a title here to tell you what it is that it's actually doing and what this component, what this template actually is. So as a really quick example, we're going to ignore the progress bar for now because it's going to not really do a whole lot until we actually have some progress to look at. But let's say I want to go about adding a hero image at the top here. Well, I can go about selecting from this here, from this div up to the title here for hero image for title. I'm going to go right click copy and skip back here into Notepad++. I'm going to just enter, give myself a little bit of space around the place, and I'm going to go right click paste, and you'll see that it dumps this stuff in here. Well, now if I go about hitting Control S, that is to save it, or you can use your save features up here, and now when I come back into here to my original My Story, I'm going to double click, and you'll see that I now have this content available for me. Moreover, if I were to come back here into my original GitHub as well, let's say I want to add a whole block of text here. Well, I can select all of this stuff here. I do recommend that you maintain the titles here as well because it will make it a bit more readable when it comes to using your own Notepad++ file. I'm going to go right click, copy, skip back down here into my Notepad++ file again, create a bit more space, and just go paste again. I'm going to Control S to save, skip back into my file editor, and double click it, and now you'll see that I've got my text here. In doing so, using each of these templates, you can go about using them as building blocks to add whatever content you would so like. I can skip back in here again, and I might use this parallax image. I'm going to select that. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to select that again. I'm going to go right click, copy, and I'm going to put this, I might put it between the hero image and the text block here. So I'm just going to create a bit more space, and I can go about hitting that, going Control S to save, skipping back and reopening the file. So each time I reopen the file, you see that I've got more content that I've gone about adding here. Now, here's a prime example straight away when we refer to it as building blocks. I don't like that these are sort of chopping one another off. So whereas before I put this parallax image in between the text block and the hero image, that doesn't really work. What I might do is I might actually cut this and put it beneath the text instead. So that's as simple as selecting the content that I wanted here, including the title. I'm going to go right click, cut. I'm going to place it beneath down here. And now when I hit save again and reopen the file again, you'll see that I've gone about editing that. In each of these instances, you should be able to work out reasonably quickly what content you can go about changing. So we're going to have a quick look at that, and we might start with changing some of this content with our image and text. The last component that we're going to use here is this part here, 2-column image and text. I'm going to go right click copy, skip back here into HTML, and I'm going to paste it there. Now, part of the reason why I said to make sure that you maintain these titles here is that it helps you to make sure that you are editing the right part. You'll see here again that I've got my my drop down here, my collapsible. So let's say I want to start off by editing my text. Well, just to make things a bit easier, I might collapse each one of these bits that are available to me so that now I can just see the green part here, which is comment, stuff that the web browser is going to ignore entirely. But underneath it, or within it rather, it will tell me what each of these components is. So just by having a quick glance around and a quick glance at this image, I should be able to see what component is available for me when I hit my drop down here. So I said before we're going to go about changing this image and text. If I hit my drop down here, you'll see where most of the content for this actually appears. Even though you won't necessarily have very much, have a whole lot of experience with HTML, there's really only 2 parts or 3 parts that you're going to want to be changing here, and you should be able to work that out by seeing what is the what content is listed here within the code and how that falls here within our example. So if I were to go about reopening this file again, no, I need to make sure that I save it first. Control S to save, and then go about reopening it. You'll see here that I've got layer Organa here. And back in my HTML file, I've got a layer Organa there. Now this is as simple as, let's say I want to change this. Instead of using a surname, I want to make this princess layer. Well, now when I hit save and reopen the file again, you'll see that it's changed to princess layer. Likewise, I could go about changing this whole block of text here, and this would alter what content is appearing beneath layer there. So I might change this to layer appears in A New Hope. Hit Control S to save, reopen the file, and you'll see that it appears here. Now, there's a lot of question then about how it is that we go about changing the image. Now, the HTML here doesn't actually include any references, it does include references rather, it doesn't include the raw image itself. So you'll see here that under this image class, so this is where the image actually appears, there's this block here. And what you'll find is that if I were to right-click copy that URL and paste it into Chrome, it would actually take me to this image that I'm using. Likewise, I can go and find any image that I would so want. So let's say, just again, I'm going to stick with a Star Wars theme here, just so that it's a bit easier, because there's loads of content here that we can be using. Let's say I want to refer to this character here, Rey. Within Chrome, we've got a handy option where if I go right-click on a character or on an image, I can go copy image address. And back here under Notepad++, if I were to get rid of this under the SRC, which stands for source, within these within the inverted commas, I can paste that, go Control S to save, and when I reopen the file, it will now have this image instead. Alright, so I can go about editing things, and I include the reference to the image itself. This does mean that if Star Wars, or Disney themselves rather, go about changing this image and were to swap it to something else, then my reference here might be wrong, and therefore the wrong image would appear. So you just need to bear in mind that by using a reference like this, it means that someone might go about changing it for you. Using the same ideas of just changing the content that you want here, if I were to skip back here to this parallax image with overlay text, you'll see that as well as that, same as before, I have a link to an image here under this URL, and this is a link to that picture of Admiral Akbar that we'd be familiar with. So if I were to skip back into my storytelling, that's this image here. Well, I can go about changing that to any other image. I could go about using the same image here. So let's say I went and used this one. I could go right-click, copy image address, and I can remove this here, this link that is available, that it's being used here for my parallax image, and I can paste it in there. Control S to save, and now when I reopen that file, you'll see that now I have this image here in between. The text here is going to be wrong, so I can go about editing that. So whereas I have Admiral Akbar listed here, I can change this to Rey, and I can delete everything here within this P tag. So a lot of it is really just picking the patterns of where the content is falling within the text and how you can go about changing it. Rey appears in the latest Star Wars trilogy. Control S to save, and now when I go about reopening it, here's the content here. So skipping back here into my text block now, if I were to hit my drop down, you'll see as well that I've got 2 blocks of text here, just as before. If I were to go about changing that, it would change it within the HTML file there as well when it gets rendered. I can hit my drop down, and likewise with this part up here where it says a totally original story, if I were to change that a totally unoriginal story here and hit save and reopen that, you'll see that it appears here, unoriginal story. So I'm just making those changes to the little key components that are available to me. Using these various building blocks, you should be able to build as much here as you would like. Let's say that you want to create a second text block here. Well, I can go about copying that, so I can go right-click, copy, and let's say I want to create a fresh one underneath. I can go right-click, paste, and create a fresh text block here. Let's say I want another 2-image column. Well, I can paste that under here. I could create a second one. I can just use that as the basic blocks, and each time I make a change I hit Control S to save and reopen it, and you'll see that it appears here as many different components as I like.